bestowed upon me. I thank God that I have listened with open ears to your pure words. Haribol, purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Srila Rupa Goswami has given directions in his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu on how to accept a bona fide spiritual master and how to deal with him. First, the desiring candidate must find a bona fide spiritual master, and then he must very eagerly receive instructions from him and execute them. This is reciprocal service. A bona fide spiritual master or saintly person always desires to elevate a common man who comes to him, because everyone is under the delusion of Maya and is forgetful of his prime duty, Krishna consciousness. A saintly person always desires that everyone become a saintly person. It is the function of a saintly person to invoke Krishna consciousness in every forgetful common man. Manu said that since he was advised and instructed by Kardama Muni, he was very much favored. He considered himself lucky to receive the message by oral reception. It is especially mentioned here that one should be very inquisitive to hear with open ears from the authorized source of the bona fide spiritual master. How is one to receive? One should receive the transcendental message by oral reception. The word karna randirai means through the other part of the body, means not, excuse me. The word karna randirai means through the holes of the ears. The favor of the spiritual master is not received through any other part of the body but the ears. This does not mean, however, that the spiritual master gives a particular type of mantra through the ears in exchange for some dollars. And if the man meditates on that, he achieves perfection and becomes God within 6 months. Such reception through the ears is bogus. The real fact is that a bona fide spiritual master knows the nature of a particular man and what sort of duties he can perform in Krishna consciousness. And he instructs him in that way. He instructs him through the ear, not privately, but publicly. You are fit for such and such work in Krishna consciousness. You can act in this way. One person is advised to act in Krishna consciousness by working in the deity's room. Another is advised to act in Krishna consciousness by performing editorial work. Another is advised to do preaching work. And another is advised to carry out Krishna consciousness in the cooking department. There are different departments of activity in Krishna consciousness, and a spiritual master, knowing the particular ability of a particular man, trains him in such a way that by his tendency to act, he becomes perfect. Bhagavad Gita makes it clear that one can attain the highest perfection of spiritual life simply by offering service according to his ability. Just as Arjuna served Krishna by his ability in the military art, Arjuna offered his service fully as a military man, and he became perfect. Similarly, an artist can attain perfection simply by performing artistic work under the direction of the spiritual master. If one is a literary man, he can write articles and poetry for the service of the Lord under the direction of the spiritual master. One has to receive the message of the spiritual master regarding how to act in one's capacity, for the spiritual master is expert in giving such instructions. This combination the instruction of the spiritual master and the faithful execution of the instruction by the disciple makes the entire process perfect. Srila Vishwanatha Chakravarti Thakur describes in his explanation of the verse in Bhagavad Gita, Vyavasayatmika Buddhi, that one who wants to be certain to achieve spiritual success must take the instruction from the spiritual master as to what his particular function is. He should faithfully try to execute that particular instruction and should consider that his life, and he should consider that his life, and he should consider that his life and soul. Okay, let me read that again. He should faithfully try to execute that particular instruction and should consider that his life and soul. The faithful execution of instruction, which he receives from the spiritual master, is the only duty of a disciple, and that will bring him perfection. One should be very careful to receive the message from the spiritual master through the ears and execute it faithfully. That will make one's life successful. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Okay, so here Prabhupada is explaining how to accept a bona fide spiritual master and how to deal with him. This is important information because if one successfully associates with a bona fide spiritual master, he or she will make tangible spiritual advancement in this lifetime and even be qualified to go back to Godhead. So, in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Srila Rupa Goswami gives some directions, and he says on how to accept a bona fide spiritual master and how to deal with him. Number one, the candidate or the devotee must find a bona fide spiritual master. And then he must very eagerly receive instructions from him and execute them. And this is what you would say is reciprocal service. A bona fide spiritual master or saintly person always desires to elevate a common man who comes to him, because everyone is under the delusion of Maya and is forgetful of his prime duty, which is Krishna consciousness. A saintly person always desires that everyone become a saintly person. It is the function of a saintly person to invoke Krishna consciousness in every forgetful common man. Well, this is what Srila Prabhupada did. He, first of all, heard from his spiritual master and followed his spiritual master's instructions. What was the spiritual master's instructions? Well, in the first, let's say, few minutes that Prabhupada met his spiritual master, right away his spiritual master said, since you are proficient in the English language, you should spread Krishna consciousness in the English-speaking world. Well, that was in 1922. Now, fast forward to 1995, Prabhupada began to execute his spiritual master's desire. And what happened in between, Prabhupada, of course, was married. He had 5 children. But eventually he was preparing himself little by little throughout all those years. And then he decided, okay, now my children are grown. I don't need to be a grihasta anymore. So he became a vanaprastha and then eventually a sannyasi. and then he spread the movement all over the world. But that's a normal, that's, let's say, the normal process that should be followed by devotees. And eventually one has to become completely renounced and spread the message of Lord Chaitanya all over the world, or as much as they can. Now, there are some people that can only do it in, let's say, their town or their city, and others can do it everywhere. Either way, they are spreading Krishna consciousness. Okay, so then in this verse it says today, because everyone is under the delusion of Maya and is forgetful of his prime duty, which is Krishna consciousness, a saintly person always desires that everyone becomes a saintly person. It is the function of a saintly person to invoke or to, let's say, inspire Krishna consciousness in every forgetful common man. So there is no, let's say, uh, there's no exclusiveness here. And devotee is meant to preach to everyone. He doesn't say, well, I'll only preach to my community. No, preach to everybody. That's what Prabhupada did. He didn't, uh, let's say, avoid preaching to some people and just preach to other people. Therefore, the real United Nations is Krishna consciousness, because everybody gets a chance to be Krishna conscious. No one is excluded because of, well, you call this, no prejudices there. Prabhupada was preaching to everyone. And anybody who wanted to hear could benefit from Prabhupada's teachings and his books. Therefore, the movement, the Hare Krishna movement, has been spread all over the world. And because of that, the real United Nation is the Hare Krishna movement. Because you have devotees from all over the world, all different ethnicities, chanting Hare Krishna and working cooperatively together to spread the movement. So, in this in this purport, it says that Manu was advised and instructed by Kardama Muni, and he considered himself very lucky to receive the message by oral reception, in other words, by hearing, and that one should be very inquisitive to hear with open ears from an authorized source of a bona fide spiritual minister. In other words, you should ask questions. When it says inquisitive to hear, it means you ask questions, and that's how you learn. And with open ears from the authorized source of the bona fide spiritual master. So how is one to receive the message of the spiritual master? Well, you receive it by hearing, oral reception. Through the holes of the ear. And it's and he says the favor of the spiritual master is not received through any other part of the body but the ears. However, the spiritual master gives a particular type of mantra through the ears in exchange. He does not give a particular type of mantra through the ears in exchange for some dollars. And if a man meditates on that, he achieves perfection and becomes God within 6 months. So there were there is still, gurus that say, you give me so much money and you can become also a guru and you can also make money. It's like what you would call uh, a business transaction. Krishna consciousness is not a business transaction. It's all about pure devotional service. And in order for it to be pure, one has to surrender without any material motive and faithfully serve the spiritual master and bring all potential disciples to the spiritual master for initiation. And if the spiritual master leaves his body, then the devotees, if they're properly trained, they can also initiate. So it's a wonderful system. And Prabhupada says that the favor of the spiritual master is not received through any other part of the body but the ears. This does not mean, however, that the spiritual master gives a particular type of mantra through the ears in exchange for some dollars. And if the man meditates on that, he achieves perfection and becomes God within 6 months. Now you might say, well, who does that? There's a lot of gurus that do that, so-called gurus. And it actually makes the effort to spread Krishna consciousness difficult because there's so many cheaters. And when people realize that they've been cheated, they lose faith in everybody, all preachers. So this has happened in Krishna consciousness also, where someone is initiated and the guru falls down. And then they take initiation from someone else. And then that guru falls down. That happened. I knew devotees that four gurus fell down in their life. So this is like the worst thing that can happen to a disciple, right? You accept someone as, say, quote, pure devotee, and then they fall down. So just put a big, let's say, uh, hole in Krishna consciousness because many devotees left the movement because of these frequent fall downs of so-called, pure devotees. So the only pure devotee we know for sure is Srila Prabhupada, the Supreme Personality. He was always, subordinate to his guru, and he strictly followed his guru's instructions, and he never deviated. So that's uh, what you would call the gold standard. Right? He never fell down, and he strictly followed everything his guru said, and he successfully spread the movement all over the world with the help of devotees. Okay, so Prabhupada says the real fact is that a bona fide spiritual master knows the nature of a particular man and what sort of and what sort of duties he can perform in Krishna consciousness, and he instructs them in that. He instructs him through the ear, not privately, but publicly. Now, why is Prabhupada saying that? Through the ear, not privately, but publicly. You are fit for such and such work in Krishna consciousness. You can act in this way. Okay. One person is advised to act in Krishna consciousness by working in deity's room. Another is advised to act in Krishna consciousness by performing editorial work. Another is advised to do preaching work. And another is advised to carry out Krishna consciousness in the cooking department. There are different departments of activity in Krishna consciousness, And a spiritual master, knowing the particular ability of a particular man, trains him in such a way that by his tendency to act, he becomes perfect. Okay, so this is very good information on how the spiritual master preaches and how he trains a devotee. He says he instructs him through the ear, not privately, but publicly. Now, why is he saying that? Not privately, but publicly. Because whatever any instruction he gives publicly to one devotee, it's also instruction for all devotees. Right? Um, so there's no exclusivity. He only preaches to a few people and not to everyone. Prabhupada was preaching to everyone. And therefore, he made many, many devotees. And he gave devotees service according to their tendency, their, let's say, uh, their abilities to preach. So someone can preach through cooking, another one can preach through writing books, another one can preach through uh, printing books, and so forth. So he gave service to all devotees according to their tendencies or abilities. In this way, there was no prejudice. He didn't only preach to white people or only preach to Indian people. He preached to everyone. Just like, sometimes you see there's racism amongst Hindus. They say, oh, he's a Gora. Meaning he's the white guy, stay away from those white guys. No, Prabhupada didn't say that. He was a genuine, pure devotee. So he did not discriminate on the basis of the body. He helped everyone to become Krishna conscious. As long as they were willing to follow instructions, he was willing to give those instructions. That's therefore, it says here, well, first of all, it says that he instructs the disciple through the ear, not privately, but publicly. You are fit for such and such work in Krishna consciousness. You can act in this way. One person is advised to act in Krishna consciousness by working in the deity's room. Another is advised to act in Krishna consciousness by performing editorial work. Another is advised to do preaching work. And another is advised to carry out Krishna consciousness in the cooking department. There are different departments of activity in Krishna consciousness, and a spiritual master, knowing the particular ability of a particular man, trains him in such a way that by his tendency to act, he becomes perfect. Bhagavad Gita makes it clear that one can attain the highest perfection of spiritual life simply by offering service according to his ability. Just as Arjuna served Krishna by his ability in the military art, Arjuna offered his service fully as a military man, and he became perfect. Similarly, an artist can attain perfection simply by performing artistic work under the direction of a spiritual master. If one is a literary man, he can write articles and poetry for the service of the Lord under the direction of the spiritual master. One has to receive the message of the spiritual master regarding how to act in one's capacity, for the spiritual master is expert in giving such instructions. Okay, so here we see the explanation of the culture in Krishna consciousness. And what is that culture? It is what you would say based on um, following the instructions of a bona fide spiritual master. one should not do anything without the permission of the spiritual master. Once someone is initiated, of course, they should always ask permission to do things. And in the same way they get instructions from the spiritual master how to do those, or at least they get the agreements that yes, you can do this, and it's a good idea, and I'll give you this advice also. One should not act independently of the spiritual master. Of course, if you don't have a spiritual master, okay, you can do whatever you want, you know. But if you have a bona fide spiritual master, you should you should ask for instructions how to do what you want, and he'll give as much instruction as possible. So it says, the real fact is that a bona fide spiritual master knows the nature of a particular man and what sort of duties he can perform in Krishna consciousness. And he instructs him in that way. He instructs him through the ear, not privately, but publicly. Now, why is Prabhupada saying that? Not privately, but publicly. You are fit for such and such work in Krishna consciousness. You can act in this way. Well, because there are no secrets in Krishna consciousness. If you have experience of other movements, they have secret mantras, and there's like private seances with a few people. Prabhupada did not have any, let's say, private seances. Everything he did was public, and it was to by instructing one devotee. Actually, he was instructing many devotees because he did it openly, right? So he was not, let's say, exclusive. He was inclusive. There's a big difference between exclusive and inclusive. So he was trying to help everyone become Krishna conscious. He didn't say, well, only white people can become Krishna conscious, not black people. No, I didn't say that. I said everybody can become Krishna conscious. Therefore, he spread the movement in Africa also, and and even to black people in the United States. He was not prejudiced. So we have to see what are the qualities of a bona fide spiritual master. Well, first of all, he instructs through the ear, not privately, but publicly. You are fit for such and such work in Krishna consciousness. You can act in this way. One person is advised to act in Krishna consciousness by working in the deity's room. Another is advised to act in Krishna consciousness by performing editorial work. Another is advised to do preaching work. And another is advised to carry out Krishna consciousness in the cooking department. There are different departments of activity in Krishna consciousness, and a spiritual master, knowing the particular ability of a particular man, trains him in such a way that by his tendency to act, he becomes perfect. Well, when I was on a morning walk with Srila Prabhupada, and as we were, it was a wonderful walk. He was preaching so many things to me. And well, I was not the only person there, but there were only two of us, or two or three of us. That was it on this morning walk. And most of the time, he was speaking with me. And at one point, I said to Srila Prabhupada, I think that I can support the temple by selling perfumes. And he said, that is not your service. He said, your service is to preach. because I was a brahmachari at that time. You can let one of the grihastas do that. So he corrected me there, and I followed him. There was another devotee, and I gave him all the information to start like a perfume business, right? And he did that, and I remained a brahmachari preaching. But later on, when I got married, uh, when you get married, uh, if you're willing to be completely, let's say, uh, involved in preaching, then you don't really, need to have a house and living separately from the temple. Uh, but if you decide to, let's say, start a business or something like that, then you cannot live in the temple. You have to, you know, have your own place and come to the temple, right? And then donate to the temple. So eventually I ended up, getting married and having 6 kids. So I had to work. And but at the same time, I was always involved with the temple. I never stopped serving. Okay, and my wife also, she was always serving. Even when she was pregnant, she would still do her service for the deities. She was dressing the deities all the time, and even right up to like 2 or 3 days before she gave birth. Okay, and here Prabhupada says there are different departments of activity in Krishna consciousness. And the spiritual master, knowing the particular ability of a particular man, trains him in such a way that by his tendency to act, he becomes perfect. Okay, so that's very important. It's very important to get advice from the spiritual master and not deviate from Krishna consciousness and not take up activities that will undermine your advancement in Krishna consciousness. That's why once a person is initiated, they should always take advice from the spiritual master before they embark on any new, let's say, type of strategy in their life. You know, so therefore, um, if you continue making your own decisions without any advice of a bona fide spiritual master, that is not good. You have to have the blessing of the spiritual master once you are initiated. Whenever you want to embark on some new direction in your life, you should get advice and the permission and blessing of the spiritual master. If you don't have a spiritual master, okay, you do whatever you want. But you cannot just make life-changing decisions on your own when you have a spiritual master. You should always get permission. So it says Bhagavad Gita makes it clear that one can attain the highest perfection of spiritual life simply by offering service according to his ability, just as Arjuna served Krishna by his ability in the military art. Arjuna offered his service fully as a material man, and he became perfect. Similarly, an artist can attain perfection simply by performing artistic work under the direction of the spiritual master. If one is a literary man, he can write articles and poetry for the service of the Lord under the direction of the spiritual master. One has to receive the message of the spiritual master regarding how to act in one's capacity, for the spiritual master is expert in giving such instructions. Now, oftentimes, people come to me that are not initiated, right? But they have some problems, right? And they usually, marriage problems or financial problems and things like that. and I try and give them good advice. But I always tell people, I say, well, before you started to do this thing, why don't you come and ask me then? Why are you coming now? That it's a very complicated problem, and it would have been better to come before you started this certain activity. Uh, but they they're not initiated people, and they were acting on their own, uh, according to their own capacities, and they got into trouble. And now they come and they say, can you help me? And basically, I am not, some miracle man. I don't give, uh, let's say, well, you give me $25, I'll give you a mantra. I don't do any of that nonsense. So, I really tell people, look, I'm not here to give advice about material things. I'm here to give you spiritual advice. So, although you've explained, what your problem is, the solution is if you chant Hare Krishna sincerely, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, and follow the regulative principles of Krishna consciousness, and come regularly to the temple and get involved in some devotional service, I can guarantee you that your problem will go away over time. And but I'm not here to give you advice about your business or your marriage problems and things like that. I can tell you, however, that if you take up Krishna consciousness seriously, all those problems will go away. You know, because ultimately, we're not here to give advice, and strategies or how, have a successful divorce or this or that. It's not our business to get involved in those issues. There was one devotee. Uh, he advised this lady to divorce her husband. Right? When the husband found out, he tried to kill him. Mm-hmm. He was running, and the devotee got scared, and he started, hiding. He went into hiding because the husband was so angry that he advised his wife to divorce the man. So you see, you have to be very careful. Uh, what advice should we give people? The only advice we should give people is to become Krishna conscious of their problems. You can't get involved in their marital life or in their business life. People can come with all kinds of problems. We're not here to give mundane advice. We're here to give spiritual advice. So that all problems will go away if you become Krishna conscious. That's our main, let's say, advice. And if they want to learn how to become Krishna consciousness, we can do that. But we're not here to give them all kinds of advice, how to, how can I get a successful divorce, or how can I, uh, make money and things like that. That's not the work of a spiritual master. A spiritual master is how can I make spiritual advancement? That's the only question that should be asked. How can I improve my devotional service? How can I make spiritual advancement? Now, if you make spiritual advancement, all your other problems will go away. But we're not here to, give advice about, should I invest in this stock or that stock, or should I divorce this lady? Should I marry somebody else? All that stuff is very, very, let's say, disturbing. And it's not actually the purpose for approaching a spiritual master. A spiritual master is there to give spiritual advice, not to give all these other advices. What's the stock market going to do? Should I invest in this property and things like that? Uh, But if a person is Krishna conscious, then they'll be able to make the right decisions in life. And when they're confused, okay, they can come and ask some advice, but the advice is always going to be about spiritual things, not material things. Material things will all be resolved if you become Krishna conscious. You have to have that faith. So, what is the advice? Well, you should chant 16 good rounds. You should go to sleep early and wake up early. Come to Mangalarti, hear lectures given by genuine devotees. Donate regularly to the temple. This is the way that you're going to be able to solve your problem. It's not going to be having, uh, advice about how to invest in the stock market and should I buy, bonds instead of investing in the stock market. That's all nonsense stuff. And we're not supposed to give that type of advice. But we should give spiritual advice, knowing very well that forgetfulness of Krishna is the real problem in life. That's why people get into trouble, because they forgot Krishna. So we should help them remember Krishna and be engaged in some kind of devotional service. Then gradually all those problems will go away. Okay, are there any questions? Yes. Oh, you were just scratching your head or something. Okay. Did the itch go away? Okay, that's
So there is a question
yeah.
by Shrinika Mataji, I think. Yes. So she first of all comment that she loves to hear your pastimes and real stories between you and Srila Prabhupada. So thank you for sharing. And then she has one question on today's session. When a guru or a devotee falls, what exactly happens in the practical life of that person? When does he or she fail? What happens before falling? How does it affect the devotion and spiritual practice? Basically, what is it?
What does she mean by falling? In other words, engaging in illicit sex or becoming an alcoholic or cheating someone? What does she mean exactly?
I think that's the question. Is like, what does it actually mean to fall? So,
Okay, well, it means you forget Krishna. You no longer take any advice uh, on how to chant or how to, you know, chant better. In other words, the spiritual master is there to give spiritual advice. He's not there to give, uh, you know, advice about, business strategies or, you know, he's not there to be a marriage counselor. He's there to give spiritual advice. So if you come with questions that are not related to spiritual advice, it's not going to be very fruitful. Because the real problem is forgetfulness of Krishna. That's why we get into trouble. That's why we have problems. So, how to improve your spiritual life will also how it will also uh, solve all your material problems. So you have to have that faith that by getting spiritual advice, it'll solve the other problems that you have. So that's my advice. If you're going to approach a spiritual master, the main question you have is how can I advance in my spiritual life? Not how can I, what strategy should I take to divorce my husband or my wife? that's That's not the purpose of the spiritual master. The spiritual master is to give spiritual advice. How can I make spiritual advancement in my life? If you make spiritual advancement in your life, all the other problems will go away. I can I can guarantee you that 100%. I can't guarantee anything else 100%. And also, you have to understand, I always ask people, I said, well, how many years did it take for you to get into this big problem? And they say, well, it's about 3 years. I said, therefore, you should expect it'll take you at least 3 years to get out of this problem. It's not going to happen overnight because it's going to take time. But during all that time, you should begin to chant Hare Krishna. And eventually, your problem will go away.
Maharaj.
Yeah.
How do we evaluate our progress in the devotion?
Yeah, it's very easy. If you're happy and are following the regulative principles, then you'll know you're making spiritual advancement. If you're not happy because you're not really strictly following uh, the recommended rules and regulations in Krishna consciousness, then you know there's something wrong, and there's reactions for that. You know, you get into arguments with people, or you lose your job, or uh, you know, somebody doesn't like you. You know, all those problems come. So all problems are caused by forgetfulness of Krishna. And the whole point of Krishna consciousness is to help you remember Krishna. And the more you remember Krishna, the more problems go away. So how to remember Krishna is by chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And when in doubt, do the right thing. Chant Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And eventually all your problems will go away by chanting, you know, and following the rules and regulations. Yeah, and I always ask people, how long did it take you to get into this problem? They say, well, 3 years. So I usually tell them, well, then you're going to have to chant very sincerely for at least 3 years to get out of this problem. You know, because it took 3 years to get into the problem. You know, there's no, what you would call fast food here. There's no fast solution. You have to have patience to solve problems. But that patience is chanting every day, following the rules and regulations. But you'll get uh, relief right away by chanting. You might not solve the problem right away, but you'll get relief because now you're connecting with Krishna and you're associating with devotees. And then the question is now you have to be just patient because it took you 3 years to get into this problem. Now it might take you 3 years to get out of the problem, but now at least because you're chanting and you're following the rules and regulations, Krishna is going to help you. And your association with devotees is going to help you. So therefore, you have to be patient and strictly follow the rules and regulations of Krishna consciousness, and guaranteed all those problems are going to go away. But it's going to take time, just like it took you time to get into the problem. It's going to take some time to get out of the problem. But if you're strictly following Krishna consciousness, it's going to happen rather quickly also to get out of the problem. But you have to be strict about following everything in Krishna consciousness. Okay, any other questions? So in this purport, this is a very nice purport, very, very good, very instructive. that's what, it's all about, how the spiritual master instructs the disciple. So here it says, the real fact is that a bona fide spiritual master knows the nature of a particular man and what sort of duties he can perform in Krishna consciousness, and he instructs him in that way. He instructs him through the ear, not privately. In other words, openly instructing, and not privately, but publicly. You are fit for such and such work in Krishna consciousness. You can act in this way. Now, see, that's the point. He's giving the person advice on what kind of service they can do in Krishna consciousness based on their tendency in life. So let's say someone is a butcher and he's, cutting meat all the time, right? So the advice to be given is you have to find another job when you're not dealing with meat anymore. So this actually happened. This one guy came up and he was a butcher. So I said, okay, well, you're gonna have to get another job. He said, well, my whole life, my whole professional life, I've been a butcher. I said, yeah, but that's not a good job. I said, once you become like, a real estate agent or something like that, where you're not dealing anymore with killing animals or butchering dead animals. So he thought about it, and then sometime later, not right away, but sometime later he came back. He said, well, I took your advice and I'm doing really good now and I'm selling houses. And he became good at it and made, even more money than butchering. And at the same time, he also became a devotee. So, we could give like a little bit of advice like that, right? I didn't tell him to become a real estate agent. I told him you got to stop, you know, killing animal or butchering animals. You got to find another job. I said, maybe you can become a real estate agent or something. I said, just stop what you're doing now, and then start chanting Hare Krishna. Right? And it worked. It worked. So there was one man that came to me. And actually, it was his wife at first. And she was trying to convince her husband to come and ask some advice. So he actually came and he was telling me what his problem was. I'm forgetting now exactly what the problem was. But I said, I don't know about, the financial aspects of your problem, but I can tell you if you can start chanting Hare Krishna mantra. And I should begin by doing like 4 rounds a day, but then go up to 16 rounds a day. Your problem will go away. So he said, "Yeah, he said, it's got to go away right away. I can't wait." I said, "Well, I can't help you then." I said, "How long did it take you to get into this problem?" Well, it took about 3 years. I said, "So it might take 3 years to get out of the problem, but during that 3 years, you should chant Hare Krishna and follow the rules and regulations of Krishna consciousness." Anyway, somehow or other, he did it, and he came back to me after some time, and he said, "It's working." He said. And I said, "Well, you're still chanting?" He said, "Yeah, I'm chanting every day." So, that type of advice we can give people, but we can't give people, strategies for investing in stocks or strategies, how to get a better divorce, or that's not our business. Our business is how to advance in Krishna consciousness. Okay. Any other questions? Any other questions from
People online.
Online.
Hare Krishna. Let's see. Go ahead. Nothing.
Any questions?
That Tanvika Mata, you wanted to ask a question?
No questions, Maharaj. I think it's pretty clear of all the explanations and how Prabhupada has put in.
Haribol. Thank you.
Examples, Maharaj, on helping that you gave few examples, like what kind of advice you had given.
Yeah.
That is helping to see the balance, like where is the line for the mundane advice.
Well, yeah, the advice is, wake up early, chant Hare Krishna, go to bed early to wake up early. That's the first thing you have to do. If you're going to get out of your problems, you have to learn to go to bed early and wake up early so you can chant your rounds. And that's what I always say. So, well, it begins by changing your schedule. No more going to bed 12, 1 o'clock in the morning. You have to go to bed, I'd say 9 o'clock at night. And then wake up 3 o'clock in the morning or 3:30 or 4 o'clock and chant your rounds. If you can, you come to Mangalarti also, and you take up, a new what you would call lifestyle. First thing is to adjust your lifestyle to be able to follow Krishna consciousness. Now, the first thing is go to bed early, wake up early. That's the first thing you have to do. Then you can chant your rounds, then you can go to the temple, then you can do this, and you can do that. But if you go to bed late and you wake up late, you can't do anything. You're not going to make any. You're not going to make any tangible spiritual advancement. The worst thing is, oftentimes, let's say I'm giving a lecture on a Sunday night, and somebody's standing, near the door of the temple, not the temple, but the room, with their hand in their bead bag, trying to chant, listening to the lecture. That's not going to work. In other words, they didn't finish their rounds, but they want to hear the lecture. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. There's not going to be good rounds anyway. So the first thing is to get regulated. Your schedule. What time you're going to go to sleep, what time you're going to eat. All these things have to be regulated. Then the solution becomes more easy. If you don't get regulated, you're not going to really make a lot of spiritual advancement. Right? You'll make some, but not much. You have to be very regulated in your life. Prabhupada was regulated. He would only sleep like 2 hours, maybe 3 hours at night, so that he could translate, write, and also advise the deities and do so much different work. One time I was Prabhupada's chauffeur, and I was driving, and just myself and Prabhupada were in the car. And at one point he dozed off, you know. I was a little worried. I had to be really careful, I didn't want to stop really fast at a red light or anything like that. And then, he came back again. He took like a 5-minute nap, a quick nap. And so, you have to be regulated. That Prabhupada was very regulated. the person that was like super regulated was Bhakti Vinod Thakur. He had one of those gold watches on a watch chain, you know. And he would always be looking at the watch, you know, because you know not only he was a guru, he was a magistrate, he was the main let's say person managing the temple in where it was.
He was writing books.
He was writing books. He had the 13 kids. You know, he was very regulated, very regulated.
And he was also fighting a lot of these bogus
Yeah, the bogus people.
gurus and whatnot.
Yeah, and he was able to do it because it was very strictly regulated. He had his watch, right? He was always looking at his watch to make sure he was on time for all the different things he had to do. Okay, Haribol, over to the DJ. The solution to all problems, chant Hare Krishna and be happy. There.
We'll end the session if there are no more questions. Hare Krishna.